Carlos Sainz has received an unusual lifeline for his Formula One career, as it seems like a former team of his is now ready to sign him again if he becomes available. But with the Williams mission becoming a bit too interesting from 2026 onwards, and with McLaren already locked in with their two strong drivers, what would possibly need to happen for us to see Sainz at McLaren again? And more importantly, is the statement of Zak Brown made with a deeper meaning behind it? One of the most interesting statements has been dropped by Zak Brown recently, as he went on to talk about Carlos Sainz and the availability of the Spaniard in the upcoming period. Of course, the three-time race winner has committed to the Williams project and is now focused on bringing the glory back to the Grove-based squad. However, McLaren is a team that rose through the ranks and set the benchmark very high in 2025, which only leaves a question as to where the limit is once the newly regulated era kicks in. This is why the statement from Brown is very interesting when it comes to potentially signing Sainz again. The primary reason why is that Zak Brown has no business commenting on the current driver's situation right now, because both of his drivers seem like a stable choice headed down the line. But what needs to be mentioned is that Brown understands better than anybody else that what is going on in McLaren right now cannot continue for a long period of time. If either one of Lando or Piastri starts to feel like they cannot win the championship in the drivers' category because of certain circumstances, they will very well start to think about other choices in their careers. And that is precisely why Brown is adamant that they shouldn't be too serious and invested in this sport. Elaborating further on this potential reunion with Carlos Sainz, Brown went on to say, "If we had an open seat, of course, we would consider Carlos, but right now we have Lando and Oscar under contract for several years. If for some reason the situation changes and Carlos is available, I have his phone number in my address book." Now, the fact that both Piastri and Norris are under contract means zero to nothing in the world of Formula One. Whether we like it or not, these contracts are nothing more but a binding paper sheet, and there are always clauses that can get the drivers out of there if certain circumstances arise all of a sudden. We need to take the example of Verstappen, as the four-time world champion reportedly has an exit clause that will see him go out from the team if he's below the top 3 drivers in the Drivers' Championship. There's no reason why we shouldn't believe such contract clauses are present in the contracts of the current McLaren drivers as well. If we're to take Piastri and Norris into consideration, especially with how the 2025 season started, it's easy to assume that both of them will be pushing the boundaries to the absolute maximum in order to become the next face of the team. On the other hand, Piastri's contract became a bit more interesting in the media because of the fact that he's managed by Mark Webber, the man who always played second fiddle to Vettel in the glory days of Red Bull from 2010 to 2013. So it's been reported that the new contract of Piastri says that he should not prioritize other drivers but himself, and that the number one driver is non-existent. It should all be judged based on the performance on track. And Zak Brown couldn't agree more with Piastri. The boss of McLaren has opened up about the potential championship fight between Piastri and Norris and said that this isn't a matter of if, but a matter of when. Further stating, "I think it's definitely a matter of when rather than if. You have two racing drivers. Whether it's the same team or different teams, they're next to each other for 24 races. Someone's going to lock a break. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting it over because I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as exciting as everybody thinks. I think it will be a racing incident when that day comes. I think it's inevitable. They are two great characters. Neither of them are hotheads. So we're not worried about it, and to a certain extent, kind of looking forward to just getting it out of the way." Oscar said loud and clear that the team had a big intention to retain him within their own rows, which goes to show that McLaren knows what type of driver he is and how stupid they would look if they let him go. Norris, on the other hand, has started to succumb under pressure, and it's obvious that the Brit will have a bit of a harder time to adapt to the entire championship fight now that Piastri is proving to be like a massive challenge as his teammate. Not to mention that Verstappen is still here meddling with their accounts. So all in all, Norris's mental state needs to improve a lot if he wants to compete for his seat in McLaren. What is an easing factor in the potential reunion between Sainz and McLaren is the fact that Zak Brown was not the one who fired the Spaniard. It was Carlos's decision to go to Ferrari. At that time, he couldn't have known that the tables would have turned heavily towards McLaren in the next couple of years, and both of them are in very different positions in their careers as we speak. Nevertheless, Zak Brown has full praise for Sainz, and when talking about it, he said, "Carlos was amazing with us, a good friend, a great driver. Luckily, I do not find myself in the situation where I had to make that decision." On the other hand, they would need consent from Sainz as well. The Spaniard is adamant that the project in Williams is going to be something that he will embrace with dignity in the foreseeable future. And it's a team that he loved watching in the past couple of years. To be a part of that project now, it's very interesting to see Sainz be a part of Williams and help them accomplish what needs to be done. And when talking about this to a greater extent, he said, "When I was 10 years old and I started to fall in love with Formula One, which teams would you have loved to drive for one day? Ferrari, McLaren, Williams. Nothing would make me prouder than getting back on the podium with Williams." Be that as it may, the situation is now very interesting because it's going to be a temptation for both of the sides. Should McLaren break down the duo, that would create flares throughout their tenure, and should Sainz abandon a project if a seat in a top team is suddenly open for him, of course, it doesn't automatically mean that he'll be the champion. We've seen that compared to Leclerc. He wasn't boding very well and didn't leave a character of a main driver. So he would have to fight his way through the pecking order in McLaren if he returns to the team that once showed great promise in the Constructors' Championship when he drove with Norris. And an interesting part is that Sainz's biggest problem to the accustom himself from Ferrari to Williams is the change of the engine. Elaborating further on this, the Spaniard was adamant that once he gets a full understanding of the Mercedes engine, he will be able to deliver a top-notch result when they are needed the most. As he went on to say, "I can talk a bit about Abu Dhabi and how that first lap went. Definitely the thing you feel the most when you change teams is the moment there's a power unit involved. It's the power unit. The noises, the vibrations, the sound, everything just changes completely. So even if I went out on the pitch trying to understand the aerodynamics and the tyres and the feeling of the mechanical sides of the car, the only thing I could have adapted for in the first few laps was just how different a power unit can be." This is a massive plus for McLaren if they're to think about a reunion, because when he was part of McLaren, he got accustomed to the Mercedes engine as well. So it's not like he's forgotten how to drive the Merc-powered cars all of a sudden. Still, it's a long shot, and Sainz would have to think twice before committing to anything in his career that would cost him another setback. A departure from Williams, where he has the opportunity to be the lead driver given his experience compared to Albon, is something that he's very unlikely to just grab from either Piastri or Norris, depending on who he would probably replace. But the situation is there. The Woking-based squad has a very difficult scenario to solve in their hands, and it's obvious that the duo of Piastri and Norris won't work for a very long period of time. The tension is there and the racing incidents are just brewing to happen. We've seen it in 2025 that Piastri's race pace has improved massively and that he's ready to be the next world champion. He received a lot of praise from Verstappen as well. So with all of this in mind, do you think that the situation between Norris and Piastri will deteriorate to the level of one of them being thrown under the bus or leaving the team on their own? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.